Thank you, Alessandra. Here is your NHL Stanley Cup playoff bracket preview. So for the first matchup, we're going to have the Predators taking on the Avalanche. Predators lead the league with 117 points. Nashville are 4-0 against the Avalanche this season, despite the recent uprising from Nathan MacKinnon and the Avalanche. The Hart Trophy candidate probably will not have enough in his tank to carry the team through a team that has a lot of depth. You know, Nashville have prolific goal scorers. They have dynamic wingers such as Philip Forsberg and Victor Arvidsson. So I would take the Predators going through on this series.
Next up here, we got Tampa Bay Lightning and the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are carried by Taylor Hall, and I just think that the Lightning are going to neutralize Hall, and the Devils will not have much left. When it comes down to depth, I just think the Lightning have more. They got Stamkos, Kucherov, Braden Point. I got the Lightning going through here.
Yeah, but I agree with you there with the Lightning, and talking about more depth in the situation, I'll take the Jets over the Wild. You know, the Jets have a lot of depth in center. They got Mark Scheifele on the first line, Paul Stastny. They're built from the back up to the front with Connor Hellebuck with 6 shutouts this year. Dustin Byfuglien leading the line on defense. They also have another prolific goal scorer, very similar to Alexander Ovechkin, actually. Patrick Laine's got 44 goals on the year. So I think the Jets are going to overcome the Wild. I don't think Dubnyk will have it in them, and the Wild don't have Ryan Suter right now.
You know, that's funny. You're going to take a Canadian team over across on my side of the board with the Leafs and the Bruins. I'm going to go with a Canadian team. I got the Leafs going through here. As you know, the Bruins have battled a lot of perseverance this year through injuries, suspensions. But this is a Leafs team that is another year of playoff experience, and I think they got enough to push through.
And speaking about playoff experience, yeah, I would definitely agree that the Leafs are going through against the Bruins. Now, for this particular matchup within the Golden Knights and the Kings, I'll take the playoff experience with the Los Angeles Kings. With the return of Jeff Carter, another prolific goal scorer in the NHL, with him back, that provides more depth, not only in center position, along with Anze Kopitar, but it gives them more goal-scoring threats. They will not have Jake Muzzin for the first game. He's not expected to be back, but he is practicing with a non-contact penny. He should be back for the playoffs. That adds more depth with Drew Doughty. And the Kings have a season-low 202 league goals that are allowed, and they have the NHL's best penalty kill. I'll take the Kings over the Golden Knights.
Now over back across on my side, we got the Washington Capitals and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Washington has been regarded as a team that has been good enough, but just not good enough to push through. But this year, I think they have no problem with the Blue Jackets. And if you look, Ovechkin and Backstrom have owned the Jackets over their career. I got the Capitals going through.
That's a good choice. And one of the things about offense, when referring even to Washington, offense usually comes most optimally when you have home ice advantage. And for this particular case, I'll take the Ducks over the Sharks. The Ducks since January 23rd are 14-1-2 at home. The Sharks have lost their footing since Joe Thornton went down. So when the Sharks have a defenseman in Brent Burns, as great as he is, he leads the team in points. There's not much depth going down the lineup. They did add Evander Kane, which is good, but I think the Ducks come out of this one with home ice advantage.
Over across here, we got the Battle of Pennsylvania. We got the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers, a rematch of the epic 2012 series. In that one, you know, we saw a lot of goals being scored, and I think we're in for another offensive firepower this year. This matchup features 4 of the NHL's top 10 goal scorers. And I just think the Pittsburgh Penguins with Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby, and Phil Kessel, they got enough to push through the Flyers.
That'll be an excellent series, and as we remember, that last one was so high scoring that you couldn't take your eyes off of the television. Now, moving on into the second round, this one's going to be very brief. These two teams are built basically in the same way. So the Predators have Rinne with 8 shutouts. Hellebuck's got 6. Byfuglien leads the line on defense. Subban leads the line on defense for the Predators. Center depth with Johansson against Scheifele. Laine against Forsberg. Going to be an absolute great series. Probably going to go down to the wire in 7 games. But I actually can take the Canadian team out of this one. I think that they have developed a rivalry with the Nashville Predators. They'll come out of this series.
Over here on this side, another Canadian team, we got the Leafs and the Lightning. Now, the Leafs have enjoyed quite the Cinderella story, but I think they might crash out this year. I think the Lightning are just too much for the Leafs to handle. And, you know, the Leafs, they won up their playoff experience from last year, but I think that's it for them this year. I got the Lightning going through.
And now down at the bottom here for the Kings against the Ducks, playoff experience would speak volumes for himself again. Although the Ducks have some playoff experience with Stanley Cup winners such as Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry, I do believe that the Los Angeles Kings are going to go far. And look, the last time the Kings made the playoffs, when they barely made it into the playoffs, they've actually gone on all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. I'll take the Kings going on here into the conference final.
The Washington Capitals against the Pittsburgh Penguins, also known as Ovechkin versus Crosby. It's been a matchup that's been lived in the NHL throughout the years. The Capitals are trying to stop the Penguins' quest for a three-peat, and I think this year they can do it. I got the Capitals going through.
Now for the Western Conference Final, what we got going on here, Jets against the Kings, another great matchup, another good matchup in terms of scoring depth, in terms of who is going to move on in goalies, within defense. And I think that the Kings in this situation, if down the line, if Jake Muzzin is not healthy, they would be struggling, but I believe he will be back. I'm actually going to take the Canadian team here. I think that the Jets are going to go all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. I think they are built for a championship. They know it, and they're going to beat the Kings, I believe.
Another offensive showdown here in their conference finals. We got the Tampa Bay Lightning, led by Steven Stamkos, and the Washington Capitals, led by Ovechkin. Now, this one could be another offensive explosion, but ultimately, in the end, I got the Lightning going through. They're just too good in the East.
And to come down to the wire for Lord Stanley himself, the Winnipeg Jets, I believe, are going to come out on top, winning the Stanley Cup. No Canadian team has done so since the 1993 Montreal Canadiens. Other notable mentions are the Ottawa Senators coming close against the Ducks, and, of course, Calgary coming close against Tampa Bay Lightning in that series, early 2000s. The Jets come out on top to get to Lord Stanley. That's all for your NHL playoff preview. Now over to Kaylin for what's making news today.